let me ask you, what's the difference between that and, because someone might say, okay, but is that really necessary? So in other words, you know, I'm going about my week and let's say like I've got like my group of Christian friends and, I'm talking to my group and I'm saying, yeah, I did this and I got upset with my kids and lashed out against them. And, one of my Christian friends goes, I understand you're struggling with this. Just remember Christ has forgiven you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what they should say, right?
Right.
You know, that's what the prophetess should say, right? Like that's what, my wife should say to someone who's struggling with that.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah, because it's true.
Christ has forgiven.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the difference? Why do you need some kind of like office of a pastor that says, not just in the same way my wife has said to someone like, Christ died for you, like, you lashed out at your kids, that's okay. Like Christ will forgive you. Christ has forgiven you on the cross or, and then you've got why do we need to go to then this pastoral role in the office of the keys for him to say, not just what my wife said, but also I forgive you in this day.
Right. Yeah, it's not about so much as why do we need to, as if like we have to check these boxes,
Mhm.
and if you don't check them right, you're not forgiven fully. It's that our consciences are troubled,
Mhm.
and Satan is right there to feed all the doubt into our minds, and so we're bombarded with guilt and the knowledge of our sin. And so God is in the business of removing sin and removing doubt, right?
Mm.
And this is why he gives us ministers who can pronounce these words, not as some obligation that you have to fulfill, like you have to go to church and hear the words from your pastor, or else you're not forgiven. No, he gives us these so that we can to assuage the doubting conscience,
Mhm.
right? And to give us absolute certainty of forgiveness. When in the hymnal, if you turn to page 292, the rite of private confession,
Mm. I was about to ask you about this, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, the pastor says, "Do you believe that my forgiveness is God's forgiveness?" Yes, I believe. Then let it be done for you as you believe,
Mm.
right? So, in other words, we know, you might tell yourself mentally, I know that Jesus died for my sins, but is your conscience convinced?
Mhm.
You know, and the devil's right there to feed the doubt. But when you hear the man that Jesus sent specifically to tell you, I forgive you your sins, that does something for the conscience
Mhm.
that can't be quantified, or put into words. And it's such a wonderful blessing. It's why I go see my father confessor, once a month, whether I need it or not, just like Queen Victoria took a bath every 6 months, whether she needed it or not, right? Because I need to hear these words,
Mhm.
because otherwise, the devil's way better at messing with my head than I am at giving him answers.
Mhm.
He's been doing his job a long time. And so I need this wonderful gift. And it's not, you must do this to be forgiven. Uh, no, if a Christian never goes to see his pastor for private confession, he goes to church and he confesses his sins. I, a poor miserable sinner, confess unto you all my sins and iniquities, and here's the general absolution. His sins are absolutely forgiven. If the Christian didn't have a chance to make it to church, and on the way there said, Lord, forgive me, or prayed the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, his sins are forgiven. So there's no doubt about his salvation. It's just living in this broken world with my sins right in front of my eyes, like bugs on a windshield, wherever I look.
Mhm.
I need to hear these words to have this comfort.
And some people might not have ever like even wrestled with that, but it is absolutely so apparent. I like how you said, you know, he does this for the forgiveness of sins, but also for the comfort and he assuages the doubt.
Yes.
And I can just say the first time I ever went to individual confession absolution was when I entered in, or when I was thinking about entering into seminary.
Mhm.
And I remember there's plenty of sins that have haunted my conscience, but I remember there was one in particular
There's
that
always one.
yeah, there's always one, and that one for a good year.
Yeah.
And when I think about it enough, it can bring back. But here's the point. I was a Christian. I had prayed about it. I had certainly talked with Christian friends about it, and I went and I was interviewing at the SEM, right? So I kind of took a tour, and Landon Martin, God bless him, love Landon Martin in many ways. And he's a great guy. And he kind of like, we kind of like talked. And I think I might have brought it up like casually. I don't know.
Mhm.
And then he's like, and then we kind of moved on. Then we were kind of finishing up. And like, it was just my conscience was just
Mhm.
yelling at me. And I was like,
Right.
this is, I want to bring this back up. This is bothering me. Or maybe I brought it up for the first time. He's like, well, let's just go do individual confession absolution. It was the first time. And the doubt went away and the
Yes.
guilt went away. And there was
Right.
something to where I also trusted in the authority of Lannon. I mean, I
Right.
trust in the authority of Christ, but
Right.
there's something about someone who's been put in that authority position that says, you know, as you said, do you trust that my forgiveness is Christ's forgiveness?
Right.
And the honest answer is yes, I do. I do believe
Right.
that. Okay, let it be done.
Yes.
You know, and it almost felt like that burden was almost passed on to him.
Right.
And not that it was laid on his shoulders, it was laid on Christ's shoulders, but like that
Yes.
God had put Lannon in that position in order to assuage that guilt because I knew I was forgiven, but the guilt had not gone away.
Right.
And it really did go away after that. Not that
Yeah.
it like never like reared its head, but never in the same way.
Right.
And that's where I just want to urge everyone listening. If you don't do individual confession absolution, I implore you to do so. And
Right.
I really want to implore those that are listening that are part of my congregation. There's a handful of people that I do this for, and we don't advertise this as much as we should, but just schedule an appointment
Right.
and please come to me for individual confession absolution. Because like you, and I don't do it monthly and I should, it's just I go to Josh Arndt for it and we do it when we can. And we probably do it. We do it when we can. And but every time I do, it's one of the best blessings. Like you just
It
walk
is.
away and it's,
It
for
is.
those that love, the feeling, some people really love like the feeling.
Right.
You get that when I go to a good service. It's just like
Yeah.
you walk away and you're refreshed. The refreshment after an individual confession absolution is very potent. Like go do individual confession absolution.
Yes. The now I get to play devil's advocate. The question that a lot of people ask is, why do I need to go to a man to get my sins forgiven? Isn't that the whole point of the Reformation? Cut out the middleman, we go directly to Christ, right?
Mhm.
And it's true. You don't need to go to a man to get your sins forgiven. So why is it that so many Christians who know that are walking around burdened by a sin that was committed 40 years ago,
Mhm.
right? Is it forgiven? Yes. Does your conscience believe it? No.
Yeah.
Right? And so God has given us a remedy for the troubled conscience. And I can say from personal experience, I remember one time years ago, I committed a sin and I was so ashamed of it. And I said to myself, I'm going to carry this to my grave,
Mhm.
and the devil's like, yes, you are.
Mhm.
And this is going to be so great. And he's like the credit card companies, right? You put something on the credit card company that you can't pay for. And what do they want? They want you to carry the balance.
Mm.
And because they know that, you put $100, $100 sin on the credit card and they say, yeah, we're going to collect $3,000 worth of interest over the next 50 years, right? Please don't pay this off. And so when you take that sin, it's already forgiven, but my conscience isn't convinced. And I've been paying interest for years. And I take that and I go to the means that God has given, to the remedy that he's provided. I confess my sin. It's gone. And the devil knows it.
Mhm.
And he knows that his platform that he stood on to accuse you for the last, so many years is gone. The platform's gone. His legs are cut out from under him. And, don't worry, you'll commit another sin and he'll be back, right? But it is such a blessing. And this is where the reformers, when they said, we can't tell people you have to do this,
Mhm.
right? Like this gift is this cake is so good, we're going to pry your jaws open and shove this cake down your throat, and you're going to love it, right? And then everybody hates it, nobody wants it.
Mhm.
So they said we have to tell people the truth. You don't have to do this. It's simply a wonderful blessing. And some people said, if we don't make it an obligation, then some people won't go.
Mhm.
True. But we can't make this blessing an obligation. All we can do is what you're just doing is urge our people, go to private confession, receive this wonderful blessing, and experience it for yourself.